Yeah, greetings of the day. This is Vinay from the NASSCOM Product Skills core team. With the mission of creating 50,000 product managers from India for the world and for products, we are excited to be doing yet another webinar. This one we have an interesting moderator, Mr. Prakash, who has 15 years of experience. He's from SAP. Prakash, looking forward to an exciting discussion. Over to you.
Thanks, Vinay. Thanks a lot for the introduction. So good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank NASSCOM for providing this platform where we can network with the various industry experts and learn together. Hope I'm audible to all of you, and also I'm visible to all of you. There could be some technical glitches, in the current world. It's very difficult to control all the technicalities involved in live streaming. So please bear with us, with me and with our panelists. Okay. So as Vinay said, today I'm going to be the moderator for this session. And thanks once again to all the participants, panelists for joining this session. And believe me, it's going to be a very interactive discussion. So if you have any questions, please post them here in the chat window. And also you can refer with the panelist name if it is intended to any of the panelists here. I will also make sure that your questions would be heard in the conversations. At the end, I will also open it up for any unanswered questions or any new questions you would be having from the audience. So let me first start. In current environment, every enterprises, every organizations in this world wants to accelerate their growth strategy. It could be by expanding their business geographically, organic growth, or addressing new markets through new offerings. At the end, they want to see happy and loyal customers. Whether it is B2B segment or B2C segment, it doesn't matter. These organizations would always think about using digital technology as a media to improve their business. In one of the recent studies shows, 97% of the large business and 82% of the entrepreneurs believe that digital innovation is key and critical to their long-term success. However, digital innovation requires big established businesses to change their way of working, their way of operationalizing their resources. In practice, most large firms are well able to answer why, when, or what when defining the innovations, when they are ideating the process. But they often struggle with how questions, how it's going to be implemented, how this going to be realized, and so on. The ideation is always easy to bring, but implementation, it needs lot of energy, lot of effort with it, and it's very difficult. And as a product manager, we have always been involved in each of decision points. Hence, it's always tricky and important for us to understand the key drivers, the key motivation for this decision. So these are the very high level options for implementing new digital offerings. Number 1, build. Number 2, buy. Number 3, partner. And each of these decisions come from own set of implications and challenges. So in these today's sessions, we are here to discuss, listen, and learn from the industry experts on these 3 pillars, why they are important, what are different options as an organizations we have when choosing these 3 key pillars, and how these are relevant to us as a product managers and aspiring product managers. I keep on referring these 3 things are key pillars because they are directly contributing to the growth of the company. So to discuss with us, to provide more insights, to enlighten us, we have 2 panelists. Let me introduce the panelists with the alphabetical order. Amit Sharma first. Amit Sharma is a member of Global Marketing Leadership Team at Tata Communications and leads marketing strategy, operations, global sponsorship for the company, in addition to leading the marketing for Europe and global media and entertainment business. Amit and team are tasked to grow the company's market share across fast-growing portfolio of services aimed at enabling digital transformation for global enterprises across all industry segments. A member of the Tata Administrative Services, the elite leadership cadre of $125 billion Tata Group, Amit has worked across industries, functions, and geographies in roles ranging from strategy, new business creation, product management, business development, strategic alliances, and marketing over the last 21 years. Amit's passion and expertise lies in building and executing transformative go-to-market strategies for B2B technology businesses through product innovation and development, portfolio repositioning, and growth marketing. I welcome Amit on behalf of all the audience.
Thank you, Prakash.
We have another panelist and industry expert with us, Vinay G. Rajagopal. Let me introduce Vinay as well. Vinay Rajagopal is a chief architect for partner ecosystem at Red Hat. As a technology lead, he is responsible for helping independent software vendors, including IoT, AI, ML, and emerging technologies-based partners to build products on Red Hat stack and go to market successfully. He brings over 20 years of application development and platform experience. He is a Black Belt certified product management professional. He also completed design thinking from MIT Emeritus, business management from London School of Economics and Political Science, leadership and strategy from Jack Welch Management Institute. He holds several granted patents and published files. An open source enthusiast who is currently pursuing Masters in Artificial Intelligence from Reva University. I heartily welcome both the panelists for today's discussion. So let me start with very basic and fundamental question. Hi, Vinay. Let me first start with very basic and fundamental question. As an organization, I understand these three are very much essential for our growth strategy. Can you please talk more on this? Maybe you can also emphasize how these are relevant in today's world. Maybe I would like to start with first Amit.
Thank you, Prakash. I think, as you shared in your opening statement, if you look at two keywords that define everybody's strategy these days, it's growth and innovation. And I think it's more of a necessity than desire. I think, around 20, 25 years ago when I started my professional journey, it product managers, used to have a clear phase of understanding market requirements. Then they used to have a development phase when you build the offering, and then you piloted, you launched, and you had a whole life cycle of sweating that product, right? And you little bit of change management, but what you had pretty much worked throughout the life cycle. But I think we're living in an environment where change is the game. The customer requirements are changing. We're seeing widespread disruption around us. Like none of us, forecasted COVID, and what it has brought has change. The number of players in the market, the number of disruptions that are happening every day, all these put together make a product owner's job really difficult. You are having to cope up with ever-changing dynamic in your market. And what that means is your offering, your product needs to evolve, needs to change. And faced with such an environment, build, buy, and partner are the three decision paradigms which everybody will face every day. Because you will have to build new capabilities, you will have to build new features, you will have to mitigate the product gaps. And so I think this is something that one would live with every day. I think I'll let Vinay add to it while we discuss later more about how do you navigate these three decision branches. Over to you, Vinay.
Thanks, Amit. Firstly, thanks, Prakash, and Amit. Pleasure to be among you guys. Thanks to NASSCOM as well. I think I echo with what Amit very precisely emphasized. Right? I don't think gone are the days where there was this question: build versus buy versus partner. It's not that anymore. It's build and buy and partner right now. Now, the fact that, let's look at it from a technical enabler perspective, right? You see the technology drivers like 5G, edge computing, they're all pushing the envelope far, to above. The fact that, you're driving your car, and your car can, not just go to a fuel station and fill the gas, but it also can make the payment. You can do a financial transaction to settle that payment. And what that means, these are architectures like, vehicle to anything versus the wallet on wheel. So there's significant shift in technology, and coupled with business drivers, right? Which is forcing the product managers, I call them product ninjas, because they really need to have some superpower, right? They have to be edge ready, they have to be multi-cloud ready, they have to ensure that the lights are always on. So it's not easy for them. Definitely, build versus buy versus partner is no more what is the need of the hour. So on that perspective, I think there is a very strong potential, significant emphasis in terms of bring the best of all the three worlds. So those are the very, three key criteria that every product manager has to think about, Prakash.
So very well said and articulated. Thanks for your valuable insights. So you touched upon the handling the customer requirements and managing the marketing demands in the ever evolving world, and also you touched upon the technical enablers, because the 3Gs of the world and 4Gs, 5Gs, you don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. The technological disruption is huge among us. You need to really think where you are heading, right? And also the shift in technology is also happening very rapidly, right? So from this concept, so where do you see these three key pillars go hand in hand, or should the organization adopt three altogether, or is there any differentiation factor for this? Maybe Amit, you would like to go first?
Right. So I think, as Vinay also said, any organization and any product which is dynamic and changing with the market will need to adopt all three strategies. But I think what I have learned from my own experience, that there are some clear considerations that allow you to pick one approach versus the other. I think the biggest consideration is when you are faced with the decision to buy versus build versus partner is whatever you're trying to add as a feature or as a capability, how close it is to your core competence. What is it going to do for you? Is it going to be the defining feature of your offering? Is it just helping you fill a gap that you have vis-a-vis the competitors? Or is it something that your customers want in addition to what you offer as strong differentiation? So I think that is the first thing. Is it your core competence or it's not? I'll give you an example. If you are a Zomato or a Deliveroo in an international context, the app which customers use to order stuff is your core competence, the customer journey, the customer experience, the features, and hence you're going to build it. You may buy some components, but you're going to build it. It's what is going to differentiate you. But if you're a restaurant owner or a food supplier or a hotel, there's no point you creating a whole team to build that, right? You're better off either buying it or partnering it with somebody else. So I think core competence to me is the first core pillar that defines what you do with it. There are other considerations. There are obviously a consideration of are you able to generate efficiencies of scale on the long term? So, if you're able to, when you buy something, it will cost you something. If you partner, you'll have to give a share of profit. But if you build it, and if you feel that in the long term you're going to sweat that and you're going to make it easier and cheaper for you, you should definitely build it and not let go of the profits. And I think the third thing, which is very important and which many a time starts defining, whether these decisions, is time to market. How much time do you have? Do you need something quickly, or can you afford to, so building takes the most time. Buying, will take a little bit time. You'll get something, but you'll have to integrate, you'll have to, build it in your offering. And partnering is the fastest route, right? You get access to not only the capability, but people who can run it, people who have the skills. So I think time to market and what time you can afford to spend is another consideration. I'll let Vinay add more. Where are others around risk, around regulation, around control that you have on it from a long-term perspective. But maybe Vinay, you want to come in and add a few perspectives there.
Sure. I mean, I like the way you kind of circled it up with the economy aspects, right? The time to market, and that kind of defines if you have to go to market real quick, what your target addressable market is, and it kind of makes sense to partner it up and build it up, right? So I like that little circular economy loop you mentioned, Amit. Just to be more precise, in terms of Prakash's question, does the organization need to use all the three together? Should it be one and the other one? And what is the differentiation factor, right? Now, if I have to summarize this, I would say, Prakash, at your opening remarks, you made a very important point: delightful customer. Now, that's absolutely important, right? Because your customer experts, they know what they are going through. They expect you guys to, be on demand service. They want you guys to have all the context about, them. What are they purchasing? What is the anticipated service levels that they are expecting? So they kind of want that on demand, immediate, very responsive action. At the same time, Amit mentioned about, regulatory security and so on and so forth, other things as well. But the point here is that, there's a very thin line between the information versus the private, the very sensitive information of your customers, right? So startups, especially when you're building your product, remember that product is your offering. Now, what that means is that it's your IP, right? You're getting paid for that particular product. So it becomes absolutely important for you to look at build being the foremost option for you guys. And of course, like Amit said, right, wherever you need a partner, because it's not the output that matters, it's the outcome, right? So what that means is that eventually you need to tap into the expertise that probably comes through open source, probably comes through the partner, the alliances that you might have, and so on and so forth. So there's no secret sauce. There's no thumb rule that whether should it be all three together or one or the other. My emphasis is, as a product offering, as a product manager, you should look at build because that's your IP, and combine it based on your time to market with everything that you need to ensure that you can get past that, winning line. But the differentiation factor comes into picture, right? I think it probably has to be a mix and match because when it comes to regulatory compliances and so on and so forth, right? It becomes very important that you probably pick a tool that kind of helps you keep the lights on and run through, have those audits in place, have those evidences in place, where you're probably taking a consent from the end customer, like, rules. If you're a global product servicing, different geographics, you probably want to look at the rule of the land, like GDPR or CCPA, where privacy is of huge concern. So in simple words, no secret sauce, no thumb rule. It's got to be a match and mix of all the three, but each one of them is absolutely important.
Yeah, wonderful insights. So you definitely touched upon all these three things, like the core competency you articulated, how it is important for the core competency to build our own product. And also you need to also think of the long-term solution for whether it is easier for you to build and so on, and also time to market, the circular economy. And you also touched upon, Vinay, one important point on the open source. Okay, and also you are collaborating with the partners and other resources, right? So we also keep on hearing about this open source. Maybe if you can touch upon this, how really this helps in the current economy, current industries, and so on.
Absolutely, absolutely. A very important question. Thanks for bringing that up, Prakash. I think the most important aspect for a product company, right, is how fast can you deliver, right? The speed, the scale, and the stability of your product, which then leads to the sustainability, right? And these things are absolutely important for you to build fast, fail fast if you require, get that rectified and move on and start building that customer base. And that's where open source plays a very important role. Now, the product managers are under tremendous pressure, right? Because we all know it's the application that delivers new innovations. But if you look at everything under the hood, the environment is getting complex, because I expect the experience that I might get from your product should be the same on a smartwatch, or like how I am right now in an airport. I walk into airport, there's a kiosk. I expect the same kind of an experience. So it's connected things versus a SaaS application, or bringing all your circular economy, the partner ecosystem, because it's absolutely important. Now, another very important thing that every product manager probably has to have in their roadmap, and I know about 60-70% they already have embarked on an AML journey, right? They want to understand how their product is used, what are the sentiments of the purchase, how can I improve my efficiency, how can I deliver my product better. The world of containerization and microservices and event-driven architecture has taken the whole shift into how you build. It's cloud native, right? How you scale and so on and so forth. So it becomes absolutely important for product managers to tap into open source, right? Because there's so much of innovation, in that innovation is something that you have to tap into. Now, at the same time, it's also important that you have a partner who can bring an enterprise class support to that open source, right? Because you definitely, as you start embarking on the journey, right, you definitely want that backed by enterprise class support. So you could deliver fast, build fast, those features that are expected out of it. And with open source, it's open innovation, interoperability, you stay agnostic, you can be, you can have open hybrid multi-cloud architecture right from the beginning, which is the best way to build once and run anywhere, right? These are the factors that open source brings to you everyone, right, for that matter. And the best part is, if you have enterprise class support, backing that open source with legal assurance and things like that, that would give you that flexibility to build fast, and that's the key.
Thanks a lot, Vinay, for opening up on the open source. How can the product managers really should focus on the open source, and how can make their life easy by using the open source? So anything you want to add, Amit, here?
No, I think Vinay's covered it all. It's a revolution of sorts to get access to skills, talent, faster speed of speed of deployment, of building. And as we spoke earlier, while you get access to um, you know this capability, uh, the customer that you own as a product owner is your responsibility. And as people who build and sell products, um, it they get a lot of responsibility of managing the entire customer life cycle, so the experience of the customer throughout the life cycle. So while you integrate third-party components or open source components, will you be able to provide the experience? And then, as Vinay also said, we currently are living in dynamic times, and there are regulatory compliance elements across different geographies. Data privacy is becoming a big thing with GDPR and many other such regulations. So essentially, that's the point of consideration, and that's where the product owner eventually needs to be very careful of how they're managing everything. But yeah, I think Vinay covered it all.
Thanks, Amit. So we really understood now how these three key pillars, how the industries can use these three key pillars. When do they select? How do they are going to prioritize? And also you talked upon the integration of these three key pillars. Okay. So one of the questions generally we get is, in which product life cycle these three are really important. Do we need to really emphasize, we have a product life cycle, right, from the growth to the decline of the product. Okay, where should we emphasize these parameters in entire product life cycle? Do we have any specific parameters here? Maybe Vinay, if you can comment on this.
Absolutely. I think that before the product gets into kind of a downfall, right? What we call in the product management terms a kind of a chasm, right? So you'll have to be pull out in terms of parameters, not specific to these three key pillars, but your start is absolutely important. When you put together a blueprint on your design board, that becomes absolutely important. And I'll give you a case study as an example. I know a very top banking ISV, global banking ISV, who put everything in place and didn't think about authentication as a strategy, right? And then he realized that when they wanted to go enterprise, when they wanted to build an enterprise customer base, they realized that they had to connect to SSs and LDAPs and OAuths and whatnot, right? So the authentication it could be very small, but it's absolutely important for you to get those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle right at the beginning, at the very beginning, so that you don't rework. As when you don't rework, you save a lot of money and a lot of customization. Otherwise, starts, kind of leaking into your product sprint cycles and so on and so forth. So it becomes absolutely important at the beginning. You need to have an early adopter who picks up your product, helps you mature it. Because I always tell my developers, right, that it's, the developers get excited to bring the super feature in the product. It's not the super feature. It's the purpose that's anticipated by the customer, who values and expects to derive that value, right? So it's absolutely important way at the beginning, before your product gets into a KSM or you start picking up as a product after a certain customer base. Early adopters, blueprint at the beginning, so the early adopters can bring that maturity, help you solve real use cases, real, very specific niche customer and industry problems. So I would say those are the parameters.
Thanks, Vinay. Amit, anything you want to add here?
I think I agree with Vinay, but I also have an issue with the traditional product life cycle. I think it's an outdated concept for the pretty much the very reason why the traditional software development life cycle is a dated concept, right? There's no waterfall now. I think there was a question somewhere on personal experiences. I have seen these decisions being taken at multiple points in the product life cycle. We've created once a product that we decided to build. We realized that others were far ahead in the development journey. We were not able to keep up, and we took a partnering decision, and we took our capability, which was really the core, and took somebody else's product and work with them, right? I have seen these decisions being taken very early when you're building the product, and if you have a customer need and a customer requirement to fulfill, and you know that there are competencies outside your control, you can partner or buy third-party components. So I think you can take these decisions at multiple points, and because the customer requirement is changing, sometimes that may be the beginning of a new product for you. Your old product may morph into something new. So I think it's very agile, and it's very transformational these days. That's from our experience right now. The traditional life cycles aren't working out, as I said earlier. But I agree. When you're beginning, you're building, that's the time you do most of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, you both touched upon very important point. Start is always important, and always you need to take the early adopters' feedback to improvise your product. Okay, instead of focusing on super features against what purpose you are building the product, so that it satisfy and also it delight the customers. Okay, right? So from this context, when we are trying to build our own product, and also we are trying to focus on the early adopters, how can I really determine if this product, can I bring the customer? Sorry, can I bring the partner to develop one feature or some other feature? Is there any factor which we use for determining, yeah, I need to build this product, I need to build this feature in this product, but I need to partner with some other external stakeholder, or I need to buy some other company or some other features of the company? So how can I really determine in this building life cycle? Maybe Vinay, if you can comment on this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good, absolutely. That's a very good question, Prakash. I think it's absolutely important for you to validate your partner strategy, understand where the partner is going to come in, understand what value the partner is going to bring in. So the big question that you will have to ask yourself as a product manager is, what type of partner? You got partners who can go all the way up till 18 months on a contract, milestone-based delivery, and the payouts that they might be expecting are of you, right? But it also depends upon how you validate your partner strategy, how well you scrutinize, how well you understand what value they bring to the table, right? But because you just cannot, it shouldn't be only the timeline that drives a product manager. I know it's one of the important KPI for all of you guys, but it shouldn't be the only parameter that justifies how you go after your partner strategy, right? Like I said, you have a partner who could take 12 months and build for you. Could be a feature, could be a module, could be, a combination of all of that. Or you might have a partner who can give you a jump start, sit behind you, and drive you from a consulting perspective. Remember, it's the IP, right? So you'll have to be very careful in, kind of decentralizing or building microservices, giving one microservices to one partner or a vendor, have multi-partner strategy, because you don't want to put all the eggs in the same basket, right? Please keep that back of your mind. As a product manager, it's not just the timelines, it's about getting things right from the beginning and getting the execution. I always keep telling it to my startup friends, and I've been fortunate to mentor a few of them. And I always tell them it's not the idea, it's the execution. So your partner strategy has to be a combination of partner validation. How do you decentralize? How do you make sure you split the services? If you're building a microservices based architecture, it is much easier for you. And very importantly, see if you want someone who's going to build it all for you. See if you want a consulting organization which can sit behind you, help you, back it up with an open source so that you have support all through 24/7. And that way, you're protected.
Yeah, I think these are really important for any product managers to understand and also to execute. I think this is really important. Instead of focusing on the timelines, you should always focusing on the execution and also the time to the market. Okay, value for the market, and also what values it going to bring to you, your product, because ultimately it's your IP, not the partner's IP. So this is very well articulated. This. So anything, Amit, you want to add with this?
Yeah. So, see, generally, we see partnering as an alternative to building, right? So we established earlier in the discussion that if there is something that is strategic and that's core, you can either, if you have time and the skills, you should build it. But if you are short of time and you don't have the skills and expertise, you can partner. But partnering does much more than just, being an alternative to building. I think there is, as product owners and product managers, we need to understand the difference between a partner relationship and a supplier relationship. Um, so, as a partner, somebody is committed to the goals that you have, right? So, if you're visualizing, attacking and growing a certain market, the partner is equally committed. And how does that commitment live up? That commitment is lived up by them investing in proportion to your own investment. So a partner generally would not demand 100% outright payment. They will not, their task doesn't end at supplying what you're asking as a component. So partner will match investments. Partners will have a share of the risk and rewards as well. So you'll agree on a revenue share, but there's also a risk that they're taking up. And that ensures that they are as committed to growing the market and the customer base as you are. And then the partners, would bring their own brand, their go-to-market infrastructure to the fold. And that's why when you partner, your brand values need to match, your ethos need to match, what you stand for needs to match. And you and the partner will have some complementary capabilities. You may be strong in a certain segment of the market, they may be strong in another segment. um, so I think the go-to-market infrastructure, the sales team, the marketing infrastructure comes to you as an organic strength. So I guess some of those considerations are very important when you look for a partner. We sometimes use the word partner loosely for all suppliers who are delivering projects for us. That's a good respectful way to address a supplier, but a partner means much more than that, right? Partner is sharing the risk, sharing the rewards, sharing the responsibility to grow the market, and it's absolutely the right strategy to go for if you strike that balance and that relationship with someone. But if you're exclusive for them, they need to be exclusive for you. You need to be going for the common win and so on. So I think it's a discipline in itself, and something to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. So one, definitely on the discipline, and also we need to really think of win-win strategy where I can win for my product and where the partner can really contribute to win for my product. So this is really key important things, which definitely we should focus on. Uh, uh, you know, before actually hearing this session, I was actually thinking it's very simple. Now I can able to relate it so complex. We have to take this decision, right? So maybe based on your experience, because you day in and day out, you would be doing a lot of these kind of activities, and you would have faced a lot of challenges in your 20 plus years of career. So how can we make it more simple? Is there any thumb rule, or is there any kind of uh, easy go thing, or easy to go, just to make it more simple so that it can be implemented so easily, it can be uh, consumed so easily? So maybe Amit, would you like to go first here?
I think the reality is that it's not easy, right? And one will make mistakes, but you need to be conscious of why you're taking a decision. So I think uh, the grid I use is, it's a 2 by 2 matrix of, how strategic it is versus how much time you have to react to that requirement, right? Not strategic, um, uh, and you don't have time, buy it, right? Strategic, you have time, it's core to you, it's something that is going to define your market, it's all about your proposition. Build it, because if you can't build it and if it's core to you, you are in the wrong business, right? You shouldn't be doing it. You can't have something as core and not have the skills and the talent to build it. It's core to you, it's important to your customers, but the market opportunities mm, getting missed every day. Better partner, right? Find a partner who can share the risk and the rewards. You are mutually compatible partner. Don't let the market opportunity slip by. And that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but the situation and the market dynamic can change every day. But this is a very simple grid, I would offer. And later, if we have time, I can share some examples from my own experience where we started with a certain decision, but we ended up, proving ourselves really wrong because of the market changing. But that to me is, my own way of simplifying it.
Thanks, Amit. Aptly put, the strategic and also the time to address this requirement is really critical for this success. Just to make it simple. Okay, so anything, Vinay, any thoughts from your end?
Oh yeah, I'd like to add to Amit. I think he made a very, very important point, right? And it all depends upon uh, what stage you are in, right? If you're a startup, you definitely need to find a way to partner, or you want to build it all by yourself. Like I said at the beginning of the call, it's your IP, right? And most importantly, there's no magic sauce. Like I said it at the beginning again, there's no magic sauce. There's no thumb rule. Actually, it's not easy. Like Amit said, it's definitely not easy. But what is absolutely important for you is if you have a positive cash flow, you've been backed by a large corporate, you could go for an all-in-all, partnering mode. If you are a traditional startup, you've been through the phases of, product maturity, and you're looking at, building something new, or you're looking at modernizing your product, from a monolithic traditional client server based architecture to a microservices architecture. You might look at partly getting to, some kind of consulting organizations to help you do that application modernization aspects of your application in go to market, right? And if you're fairly like a corporate, you're a huge corporate back, you have millions of dollars, you could go for all in all M&A, a merger and acquisition, to pretty much buy out your computation or your other products, which could be a strategic focus for you to align along with your products. So it becomes absolutely important for you to realize, what are you, what your organizations are, what is the mission that you've laid for yourself, what is the vision that you've laid for yourself, and how you want your product strategy to be around that, these aspects of it. So that kind of summarizes what Amit, I'd like to extend what Amit mentioned on those.
Thanks, Vinay. So you touched upon very important point here, monolithic. Okay, so I also keep on hearing monolithic versus hybrid. So is the hybrid go-to solution in this kind of environment, be it product development organization or be it a consulting organization? So what is your take on this? Maybe Vinay, if you can.
Absolutely. I think, if you have to scale, if you look at cloud native development, right? If you have to scale, you have to have your services work independent of each other, right? Otherwise, you have to build in a synchronous mode, right? It's like you have one waiter, you walk into a hotel, you order a pizza, you have one waiter who'll take the order, he goes back to the kitchen, gets it back, gives you back, and there's 5 of your customers waiting for it, right? It doesn't happen that way. Microservices-based architecture, now, we have serverless, we have function as a service. So these are the architectures which are, bringing in that scalability for product organizations, right? And without that, it's very, very difficult. You can't have your application tied to your hardware anymore, right? Or be it a virtualization layer, or the memory, the thread pools, the long statements that you're running in your SQL servers and things like that. Gone are those days, right? Microservices gives you that scalability. And when you containerize your application, it gives you the flexibility of how you package your application, how you deploy your application. Now, you made a very important point, right? See, when you're building as a product owner, as a product manager, you need to have something called future-proof. How do I future-proof my architecture, right? Let's say if I build an application for all those born on the cloud organizations, right? Let's say if I build something on one of the public clouds and I have customers who have affinity towards another public cloud, how do I re-architect myself? And if I'm a traditional ISV, I've already built an application, I have hundreds of customers. How do I run through a strangulation process? And strangulation process is where you start squeezing the monolithic and start building towards a microservices-based architecture, right? Now, on both the aspect, it becomes easy for you to build a hybrid. When I say hybrid is because if you architect your application on a hybrid, or be it bare metal, be it virtualization layer, be it on edge computing devices with a very small footprints, right? Or be it on a private cloud or a hybrid cloud. If you architect it, I'll give you an example, or if you build it on OpenShift in Kubernetes, what that means is that you could pretty much, you run it on AWS, you run it on, Azure, or you run it on Google Cloud, you run it on IBM Cloud, or a hybrid cloud or a private cloud, right? It gives you that that ability to be seamless in terms of customer experience, in terms of your own developer experience, developer efficiencies, developer velocity, and your operations, your SRE team also, right? So that is absolutely important for you to, build on hybrid approach, have it open so the interoperability, brings value to your customers, and you're easy to, connect and integrate with several other circular ecosystem partners that you might have to in the process of maturing your product. So open hybrid is absolutely important.
Thanks, Vinay. So you really touched upon the point on the interoperability, and also we also need to really focus on not only the customer here, we also need to focus on the customer with the developers as well as the operation team, so that we all go hand in hand, so that you can minimize the risk and also you can maximize your product potential. So thanks providing these insights. Anything, Amit, you want to add here?
I think Vinay covered it really well. Nothing more to offer.
Thanks, Amit. Maybe I think Vinay, you want to leave early. Maybe closing comment from your perspective. What the message you want to give to the audience? What is that they can, as a takeaway, they should consider? Maybe in few minutes, if you can summarize it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Prakash. Sorry, I'm getting my last call for the flight. So like I said, product managers are some kind of super ninjas, and they need superpowers, right? Because you have to be ready with so many things. And I've always said this all through this lovely interactive session that we're having. There's no magic sauce. There's no thumb rule. So the biggest important point is tap into open source innovation. Even if you want to solve world's hunger, they say that you cannot solve world's hunger. But I know today's product managers can do whatever they want to do. You have that passion to build amazing things. We've been seeing, we've been witnessing it. So I would say, even if you want to solve world's hunger, it will have to be one thing at a time. So start small, fail fast, and keep building, keep improving, and the rest will sustain. Speed, scale, and most importantly, the stability is absolutely important. And like I said, the rest will anyway sustain. The second point that I would like to make is it's outcome versus output. Nobody is looking at a super feature. They want value that serves their purpose. So adopt open source, build fast. If you have to buy something, you have to partner it, absolutely go for it. But remember, your customer pays you for your offering, not for everything underneath the hood. So ensure you have enterprise support back to your, whatever stack that you're building on. Be future-proof, and make sure you have a product strategy that's built on hybrid architecture. Have that early adopter from the industry who can adopt your product, mature your product, and make sure that you solve that industry challenge or your customer's challenge. And you will see all of a sudden there'll be a lot of customers who will be adopting this.
Wonderful, Vinay. Thanks a lot for your time for this discussion, and also providing your valuable input. I'm sure audience would have enjoyed this conversation with you, Vinay. Thanks a lot, and happy journey back to Bangalore.
Thanks, Prakash. Thanks, Amit. We'll catch up soon. And for everyone listening, look forward to talking to all of you guys. Please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, Twitter. We'll stay in touch. Thanks again. Have a lovely day.
Thanks, Vinay.
So, Amit, coming back to the last question, as a closing comment, what is the message you want to give to the audience? What should they take away as a one key aspects from today's session?
I think I was looking at the questions, and there are questions about, how frequently you should review the buy, build, partner decisions. How do you know if it's working well? I think I would say for as product owners, and when you own the product, if you are a single product company, you own the company, right? So as a product owner, our loyalty and our emotion should first be with the customer, right? I think I would say there are two things that we need to ensure. One is, are we in complete sync with the customer? Are we in touch with the customer? Are we understanding what their needs at this moment are? Because the needs are changing, right? So the first principle is a complete understanding of our customer and what they need right now, not what they needed in the requirement document many years ago or a year ago. What do they need right now? That's the first principle. And the second principle is a passionate desire to offer the best that they deserve, right? Now, when you have these two, when you are aware what they need now, and when you have the desire to offer the best, you will always know what your product needs to do in the mission to be the best, right? And that's where the gaps in your product vis-a-vis what they need will always come. And once you're always aware of this gap, the build, the buy, and the partner decisions will be the solutions to that. Many a times, the failure of these strategies is not because people didn't know whether to take a build or a buy decision. It's because they didn't know how the market was shifting and the customer was shifting, right? So if you know the market shift and the consumer need shift, you will know when to take these decisions. It is easy to take these decisions. It's difficult to know that you need to take them right now. And what is the incremental feature or the value that you need to deliver to your product? So I guess that's what I've learned in my experience as the biggest, uh, failure point for most organizations, more products. If you avoid that, then I think everything else can be a systemic flow chart. So the frequency with which you understand the customer, that will define the frequency with which you evaluate your build versus buy versus partner discussions. Like from our experience, there was a time when we decided to build a capability because we thought customers need something and the other providers don't offer that, right? Within a few years, we realized that the other providers actually build that capability, and hence the customers did not do that, did not need that anymore. And so we had to, drop this product and move to a partnering situation. But it's all happening because you're sensing the market, you're understanding the customer requirement. So I think that's what my 2 cents would be. A deep understanding of your customer and what they need now, and a deep passion for offering them the best that they deserve. Everything else, I think, flows from that.
Absolutely. What your all the points are really valid. Okay, so always we should focus on the customers. Customer. Always, customer always comes first. Okay, so really glad talking to you, Amit and Vinay. So as a closing remarks, we really gone through in the last 50 odd minutes on how these three key pillars, okay, so how these three pillars, the build, buy, or partner decisions, when to make, where to make, how to make. So this completely emphasized by these industry experts. Now we could able to really figure it out. How can we really focus on when to use these strategies or the programs or the projects, whatever we call it as, from the industry perspective? Okay, so one last question was it's related to how can we really differentiate output versus outcome. Okay, so when we talk about output is kind of, what we are doing at the end of the day. So not necessarily it is going to result in an outcome. Okay, the outcome is a kind of results, what you are going to emphasize, what you are going to visualize, what you are going to realize in soon or either the point of time. Okay, so this is what I could able to touch upon the last question here. So with that, it's wonderful discussing with you, Amit, of course, Vinay as well. So, and also knowing your perspective on this topic, and I'm sure the audience are also enjoyed this conversation, and also there are a lot of key takeaways from these conversations. So with that, I would like to say once again, thanks to you, Amit, thanks Vinay as well, and thanks to the audience for patiently hearing us. Thank you, and over to you, Vinay.
Thank you very much, Prakash, and thanks NASSCOM for building this lovely community, which allows us to share and learn from each other. I'm glad to be a part of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.